Hey guys, welcome back to more HOA stories. In today's Ripe Stories video, an HOA Karen called the police on a rancher and then gets sweet karma. Let's dive right into the video. The first one is titled, Am I the a-hole for teaching my neighbor and HOA a lesson after they ignored my complaints? This whole nightmare started about 8 months ago when my wife and I moved into what we thought was our dream apartment complex. The place looked perfect, modern units, well-maintained grounds, a nice pool area, and reasonable monthly fees. The leasing agent was super friendly, showing us around and explaining all the amenities. What she conveniently failed to mention was their draconian 3-strike rule. Well, let me tell you about this ridiculous policy. Basically, the HOA would issue strikes for violations of their rules. 3 strikes and you're facing eviction proceedings. Sounds reasonable enough when you think it's for serious issues, right? Wrong. These strikes could be issued for the most trivial things imaginable. My first encounter with this insanity came just 2 weeks after moving in. I work night shifts at the hospital, so I installed blackout curtains to help me sleep during the day. Apparently, this was a cardinal sin according to our HOA rulebook. I got home one evening to find a notice on my door. It said, "Violation notice, non-compliant window coverings visible from exterior. Please remove immediately." This constitutes strike number 1. And by the way guys, this strike system is almost as stupid as the strike system on YouTube. Anyway, I was baffled. I reread our lease agreement and buried on page 37 was a tiny clause about only HOA approved window coverings may be visible from building exterior. The standard white blinds they provided were flimsy and let in way too much light for someone who needs to sleep during daylight hours. The next day I called the HOA office. Hey, I received a violation notice about my curtains. I work night shifts and need blackout curtains to sleep. And by the way, Ripe Stars, I apologize in advance. Sadly, I think I cannot do the Karen voice today because I feel a little bit sick and it would be extremely exhausting for my voice. Either way, the HOA woman said, all residents must maintain uniform appearance. You can have blackout curtains, but they cannot be visible behind the standard blinds. So that means I need to install a 3rd layer of window coverings? I asked incredulously. That would be compliant with HOA regulations, she confirmed. I spent the next weekend carefully adjusting my blackout curtains so they could not be seen behind the useless white blinds. It was ridiculous, but I wasn't looking for trouble. Strike 2 came about a month later. It was a scorching summer day and my wife and I had gone for a swim at the beach. When we got home, we hung our beach towels over the balcony railing to dry. We went inside to shower and change, planning to bring the towels in afterwards. Well, not 10 minutes later, there was a knock at the door. An HOA representative was standing there, clipboard in hand. Good afternoon. I'm here to inform you that hanging towels on balconies is a violation of HOA policy. This constitutes your 2nd strike. Are you serious? They've been here for literally 10 minutes. We were just about to bring them in, I protested. Section 12, paragraph 3 clearly states, no items shall be hung from balconies at any time. We take pride in maintaining the aesthetic appeal of our community. I bit my tongue to avoid saying something I would regret. Fine, I will remove them right now. A notice has already been issued, she said with an almost smug look before walking away. Meanwhile, my next door neighbor was apparently exempt from these strict policies. This guy, let's call him Party Dude, would host loud gatherings almost every night of the week, music blasting, people shouting, doors slamming until 3 or 4 in the morning. After 3 nights of this, I called the HOAs after our line to complain. We will look into it, was all they said. Nothing happened though, the parties continued. I called again and again, documenting each complaint. The response was always the same vague assurance that they would just address the issue. But Party Dude never seemed to get a single strike. This is insane, I told my wife after another sleepless night. How is it that we get strikes for curtains and towels, but this guy can disturb the entire building every night without consequences? Well, maybe he's friends with someone on the board, she suggested. Or maybe he just ignores the notices. Either way, it was infuriating, but the situation went from frustrating to disgusting when Party Dude reached a new low. One Saturday morning, I went out to our balcony to enjoy a cup of coffee, only to be hit with a horrific smell. I looked over to Party Dude's balcony and then I saw it. A blanket, completely soaked in what was clearly vomit, draped over his railing, dripping onto the balcony below. "That's revolting," my wife said, quickly retreating back inside. "You need to report that." I called the HOA immediately, saying, "There's a vomit-covered blanket hanging from my neighbor's balcony. It smells terrible and it's dripping onto the balcony below. We will need someone to investigate," was the standard response. And well, days passed, that disgusting blanket remained there and the smell was only growing worse in the summer heat. I called every day and each time I was told that they were just handling the situation. After a full week, the blanket was still there. I had called the HOA office 7 times, I had documented everything with photos and even timestamps. Meanwhile, we couldn't use our balcony because of the smell and flies were starting to gather. That Sunday, I was at my breaking point. I was about to call the HOA again when I noticed something through Party Dude's open sliding door. He was clearly selling drugs. There were people coming and going in, quick visits, small packages changing hands, money being counted. This was not just a party guy, he was actually running a small-scale dealing operation from his apartment. Well, that is when I decided the HOA was not going to help me, so I would help myself. I called the police in an emergency line. "I would like to report a suspected drug dealing at my apartment complex," I said, giving them the address and apartment number. "It's actually been going on for some time now, and there's also a health hazard situation with biological waste that's been reported to management repeatedly without any action." The dispatcher assured me that they would send someone to check it out. About an hour later, 2 police officers showed up and they knocked on Party Dude's door first, then on mine. "We received a complaint about possible drug activity," one officer explained when I opened the door. "Yes, that was me," I confirmed. "I've also been trying to get our HOA to do something about that." I pointed to the vile blanket. "It's been hanging there for a week. I've called every day." The officers looked disgusted too. "And management hasn't addressed this?" "No. But they gave me a strike because my towel was on my balcony for 10 minutes. The officers exchanged glances. "Would you mind showing us any documentation of your complaints?" I invited them in and showed them my log of calls, the photos I had taken each day with timestamps, and the violation notices I'd received for minor infractions. "This seems like selective enforcement," one officer noted, "and that blanket is definitely a health hazard." They thanked me and went back to Party Dude's apartment. I couldn't hear everything, but there was definitely some heated discussion. About 20 minutes later, I saw Party Dude being escorted out in handcuffs and officers carrying out several evidence bags. The next morning, I got a call from the HOA president herself. "I understand that there was an incident involving the police at your building yesterday," she began, her tone unusually deferential. "Yes, after a week of reporting that disgusting health hazard with no response, I had to call the authorities," I replied calmly. "We may have mishandled the situation," she admitted reluctantly. "The board will be holding an emergency meeting to discuss our response protocols." "Well, that would be appropriate," I said. "I would also like to discuss the 3-strike policy and how it seems to be selectively enforced." There was a pause. "Yes, that will be on the agenda as well." 2 days later, a cleaning crew finally removed the revolting blanket, and the day after, I received a formal letter from the HOA saying, "After a review of recent events, all strikes against your account have been removed. We apologize for any inconvenience and thank you for bringing these matters to our attention. The board is currently reviewing our enforcement policies to ensure fair and consistent application." And well, Party Dude was evicted within a month. It turns out he had been running quite the operation from his apartment and the police found enough evidence to charge him with distribution too. As for the HOA, they underwent a significant restructuring after it came to light that several board members had been accepting bribes to overlook certain violations. The 3-strike policy was revised to focus on serious issues rather than petty infractions. My wife thinks that I went too far by calling the police though. She says I could have tried one more time with the HOA or gone to the property management company instead, but after months of double standards and that disgusting blanket hanging there for a week, I had just reached my limit. So Reddit, am I the a-hole for calling the cops on my neighbor and effectively forcing an HOA overhaul? And yeah guys, I would say OP is 100% not the a-hole here. I would rather say he is a saint because that neighbor deserved to get arrested and that HOA needed an overhaul. Edit number 2, just found out that 3 former HOA board members are facing charges for accepting bribes and enabling illegal activity. The new board seems much more reasonable so far. Comment number 1. Not the a-hole. You tried the proper channels multiple times. What were you supposed to do? Live with the smell of vomit forever? The fact that board members were accepting bribes explains everything. You exposed corruption. Comment number 2. You're the a-hole. You got someone arrested because you could not handle some noise? Do you have any idea what happens to people in prison? Hope you feel real good about ruining someone's life because your precious little feelings were hurt over a blanket. People like you are everything wrong with society. Comment number 3. Everyone sucks here big time. Your neighbor was obviously a disgusting pig, but you went nuclear over some noise and a nasty blanket. Ever heard of earplugs? And LOL at everyone congratulating you for being a narc. That is some real bootlicker energy right there. You and your corrupt HOA deserve each other. And the next one is the title story, which is titled HOA Karen calls cops on rancher and gets sweet karma. And by the way, if you have watched until here, I would very much appreciate it if you could subscribe to the channel and like the video, since that would help me tremendously because YouTube is giving me a hard time right now. I own a family ranch, and I will be the first to admit that it is currently in a bit of an odd location. I'm within an HOA neighborhood, and while other properties might have an acre or two, I very obviously have the biggest property. I'm also the only person running a ranch. But this was not planned by me. Areas got sold, and if you look back 100 years, the only people living here were actually ranchers and farmers. I guess I'm just stuck in my family way and never sold out and just continued to run my ranch as the area around me changed into basically the suburbs. One thing I feel the need to mention is that the operation I run is totally by the books. All my animals are kept in coops and barns, do not have a way to get off my property and cause any problems for anyone. The amount of crops I grow is within what I can legally do as well. I know some ranchers cut corners and pay for help under the table and things that can get them in trouble. I just have myself and my son to take care of everything, and I'm teaching him that doing things by the book is important. Nothing is worse than the IRS coming after you for some reason. Now, the neighborhood has an HOA, but I'm not part of it. My land is so different from every other home that it just doesn't work with me in an HOA. Even if I was in it, they would be able to control only the residential areas of my land and not the business side of things, which to me just seems like making a mess of a whole gray area. The lady that runs the HOA is the only person in the neighborhood that seems to have a problem with me having a ranch. I have probably been reported more times than everybody else in the neighborhood combined. When she calls the police on me, they don't have a choice but to come out and respond to it. They cannot get her in trouble because she's not calling and telling them outright lies like I have drugs or weapons. She just wants to make complaints regarding the noise and the smell. Her biggest complaint actually is that my pigs smell, to which some might seem like a valid complaint, except for that there's only one glaring problem with her complaining about my pigs, and that is the fact I don't have pigs. I have cattle, chickens, and a couple of horses. The regular police that show up tend to just tell me that I got another complaint and hand me a copy of the police report saying they came out and nothing was actually wrong. The problem is the lady who runs the HOA is just a Karen and wants to get her way. And her way would be me not having a ranch, so she is hoping one day the police will tell me to stop doing it. I think the funniest part of all of this, which I'll touch on again later, is the fact that Karen does not want me around, but wants my produce. For all my non-American readers, you may or may not know that right now eggs are having a bit of a problem, low stock in supermarkets having very high prices. I'm fortunate that my chickens are not sick, and part of that probably is that there are no other farms or ranches around, so the risk of disease spreading is low. Anyway, I've had a lot of people coming and asking how much I was selling eggs for. I actually had plenty and decided to give my neighbors a fair price on the fresh eggs. Karen was not actually one of the people buying them though. No, Karen was not so subtly sneaking into my property after dark and stealing the eggs. Again, this will come back into play later. I was not ignoring it, I was actually recording it all. Karen decided that calling the police constantly on me for noise and smell was not gonna get her anywhere, neither was her tactic of trying to come to my house and yell at me though. She decided on a new tactic that would cause a massive chain reaction, leading to her own demise. And it all started with a visit. Karen, hello. Me, what complaint do you have against me this time? Karen, well, aren't you rude? I just came to inform you that the HOA has decided that this will be a purely residential community, so you will need to leave. Me, well, considering I'm not even in the HOA, you cannot tell me what to do. Only the city can shut me down. And I actually have paperwork showing my ranch is fine. Karen, this has nothing to do with the city. You and your little animals are nothing but a disturbance to everybody around here. So you can leave now or make it harder. Me, they don't seem like a disturbance when you're stealing my eggs. I'm not going anywhere. Karen, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't want your disgusting eggs. By the end of the week, you will be gone one way or another. Me, well, yeah, we will just see about that. I don't know what Karen was thinking when she thought she could intimidate me. I was not scared of her and couldn't imagine anybody being. She was actually a lot of big talk and maybe could screw over some actual HOA members, but I knew couldn't touch me. The line all got crossed on a single day though when she decided to come onto my property and not even mention it to me. I only found out that she was there when my son told me there were noises coming from the barn that seemed odd. I saw Karen in there trying to do something. I wish I could be more specific than that, but really, I can't. It was as if she was trying to push a cow and tip her over, not realizing that these are big and heavy creatures. Me, what the hell do you think you're doing in my damn barn? Karen, I'm getting rid of these things. You cannot have them here and I'm gonna make sure they are gone. Me, you lay another hand on any of my animals and I promise that you will be the one that is gone here. She made another phone call to the police, but this time her complaint was a little bit different. She claimed that I was causing a huge disturbance. I was letting animals run loose and putting children in danger, and of course threatening to hurt her based on that last comment I made. Well, when they came this time, Karen started yelling, not at me, but actually yelling at the police. She was going on a rant about how they needed to arrest me, that my ranch was illegal, and I was keeping animals without a permit. That I threatened to hurt her as well. I gave my side of the story that she had trespassed and went into my barn with the intent to harm the animals. I had my paperwork in order and was more than happy to show the police not only that, but something else as well. I had 5 video files that I was holding onto and saving for just the right moment. This was that moment as I showed it to them. In each one, Karen clear as day was trespassing onto the property and stealing my eggs. They were looking between the video and Karen. A couple seemed a little happy to finally have something on her, since she was abusing the police resources for a while now. Officer, sir, are you pressing charges against this woman for trespassing and theft? Me, yes I am. Those 3 words were beautiful as Karen was put in handcuffs to be removed from my property. The entire time she was screaming at the police that she was the HOA president and that they could not arrest her. I couldn't stop myself from having a crap-eating grin on my face as I watched her get the karma she deserved. I knew that she was not gonna get in a crazy serious amount of trouble for trespassing and stealing some eggs, even if she did it 5 separate times, mainly because I knew she could argue that I knew and did not report her sooner, so I did not care. Still though, she was gonna face some fines and needed to pay me for all those eggs she stole. And of course I was charging her market price for those eggs instead of my normal discounted rate I'd been giving to other people. I felt like this was gonna be the end of things, but I found out something else that just put it over the edge. So the HOA had apparently been attempting and failing to investigate a string of theft going on that I didn't know about since I didn't go to any meetings or anything. Based on what I did, others set up cameras and it turns out that Karen had been stealing from other people as well. I guess she thought HOA president meant that she was allowed to just take anything she wanted, and the HOA board was quick to kick her out of her position and back into the hands of the police and the court, who had her within 2 months in court twice for theft. Again though, it was all petty theft and nothing of big value was taken, so she did not go to jail. She just faced fines and got a record. People now hated Karen and wanted her gone. I guess that being a leper in what used to be your kingdom is just too much for people like Karen. She sold her house faster than I thought was possible. One day she was there and the next she was gone. I also found out that the HOA was changing some of the rules that she had set up. Other people, since they had the space now, were thinking about raising chickens of their own, but couldn't because of Karen's previous rules. I know the land will never be full of farms and ranches like it used to, but it's nice to see the small shift. I started talking to the current HOA about possible events we can do and how I can help with my space and abilities. Like for Halloween, getting to set up a pumpkin patch and maybe letting kids pet some of the animals. I'm willing to work with them and make the community better now that I know somebody like Karen is not running things anymore. And now let's move on to the next story. It starts like this. So I own a very successful wedding photo and video business, and living near a city means that pretty much every weekend is booked solid for multiple events. I have a great staff, and at this point my end of the job is more planning and making the deals rather than going to the venues and actually doing any of the photo work. One couple that I worked with, their husband-to-be is a foreign car salesman. I was also into cool cars, and he told me to come down to the dealership and he would show me something real cool. I did go down, and what he showed me was a 2022 Lamborghini Aventador, and I fell in love with it. Buying a car for $500,000 might seem crazy to some people, but for me it felt like I needed this car. I really don't buy myself nice things and I live frugal, so I had a good savings for something nice. And yeah guys, that's certainly not something you hear from many frugal people, that they intend to buy a Lamborghini. Anyway, after I got the car and started posting about it on my Instagram, my uncle caught wind of it and ended up coming over to my house. This was strange because my relationship with my family is extremely strained, and I did not even realize that I still had him on Instagram, as most of the family blocked me from social media once, and I basically got disowned. To make a long story short, I knew I was gay when I was 15, and the rest of my family didn't approve of my choice, as they put it. They did not kick me out since they didn't want to get in trouble throwing out a minor, but I was the black sheep of the family pretty much. I was ignored and insulted until I was old enough to be told to leave. As it stands, I basically did not have a family anymore, so seeing one of them show up was very odd. I figured that if he was there, something horrible happened, like my mom or dad died, and he wanted to tell me. Instead though, he started circling the car and making noises about how good it looked, giving off a strange vibe. Finally, he said what he was thinking, and I wished that he had never shown up to my house. Uncle said, "This is a nice car and it really needs somebody older and more experienced to take care of it." Me, "I know how to take care of my car, don't worry." Uncle, "I deserve a Lamborghini though. I worked hard all of my life and did what I was supposed to." You, on the other hand, take little pictures and don't really deserve something like this. Plus, this is a real man's car and, well, it would be wasted on you. Me, if you came to insult me and demand my car, you can turn around right now and walk off my property. You all made it clear that you didn't want me around, and now that I have money, you think that you're entitled to a slice, huh? Well, you're not. Uncle, after all that we did for you. Me, you mean making me feel alone since I was a teenager and then dumping me like everybody else once I turned 18? You're not getting anything and I'm not falling for your fake sweet talk. He then got mad and left, but this really got me angry with the entitlement and the things that he said. Especially calling my job and passion just taking little pictures. If my family cared at all about me, they would have known that I went and took nature photos in my spare time and submitted them to professional magazines. On top of being in charge of my business and making bank doing so. Telling him to leave was not enough though, as I was getting messages and threats from him in order to get my car. He told other members of my family lies that it was meant to be his car, and I managed to swindle it out from under his nose. His birthday was coming up and I knew that if I wanted to end this harassment, I had to do something decisive. I'd always suspected my uncle's business practices were shady, so I decided to do some digging. Over the next few weeks, I hired a private investigator to look into my uncle's finances and business dealings, and what they uncovered was shocking. Years of tax evasion and fraudulent accounting practices. Armed with this information, I contacted the IRS and provided them with all the evidence. I also reached out to a lawyer to ensure I was protected from any potential backlash. On the day before my uncle's birthday, federal agents raided his home and business. The news spread quickly through the family and suddenly all the harassing messages stopped. I later learned that my uncle was arrested and charged with multiple counts of tax evasion and fraud. The family was in chaos, with many of them potentially implicated in his schemes. As for me though, I kept my Lamborghini and continued to grow my successful business. I used some of my profits to donate to charities supporting underprivileged youth, just like I was. The experience reinforced my decision to remain no contact with my family. I realized that I'd built a better life for myself without them, surrounded by supportive friends and colleagues who accepted me for who I am. In the end, my uncle's greed and the family's entitlement led to their downfall, while I continued to thrive. And before we end the video, we will read the story from r/petty revenge. This one is titled, "Tesla drivers hogging the chargers in my building? No more free charging for you." So I live in a wonderful mixed-use building and it's been great. Lovely amenities and decent tenants and even free electric car charging. This was simple and easy for the last 2 years, and out of nowhere, more and more Tesla Tesla people moved in, bringing their swastikas with them. And by the way, Ripe Stars, I'm curious, do you drive an electric car or a hybrid? Let me know in the comments. We currently got a Honda CR-V, which is a hybrid, and I gotta say, I'm pretty happy with that car. The mileage you get out of it is pretty impressive. So anyway, in the building, there's like 20 EV sharing for chargers, no biggie, cause most tenants respect the building's 4-hour limit rule. Which should bother no rational person that understands that not everything is about them. However, Tesla drivers are a different breed, and a few of them think that those rules don't apply to them, whether it is because they have a bigger car, or they have kids, or whatever excuse they have for hogging the chargers day and night whenever they can. And yeah, they have bigger batteries and need longer charging, but the 4-hour time limit is the 4-hour time limit. It simply would not be fair if someone in an on-site laundromat hogged all the washers and dryers all day long, would it? Well, who gives a crap their reasons for hogging the chargers? But wait, this gets interesting. So recently the guest level parking charger stopped working, something wrong, nobody can get it to work. So now we are down to the one downstairs and that is it. Remember, each charger has 2 points, so now it is 2 charging cables for over 20 EVs and some malicious Tesla drivers among them. I decide to leave a note one night on the charger itself because of said malicious Tesla driver decided to charge both their cars the entire afternoon into the evening, taking up all the chargers, which others of need to use to get to our jobs and whatnot. It simply said the 4-hour time limit applies to everyone. However, the next morning I went to charge and found the note ripped up with a portion left with a reply written, "Say it to my face." And since then, it's just been a race to the chargers before 4 PM to avoid the greedy Teslas who come and take them the whole afternoon and night. Sometimes they win, sometimes the rest of us do. More recently though, someone else left a note as well addressing their behavior, saying, "Please consider other drivers need to use these too." And the reply left on it was, "I saw you on my cameras. I won't consider crap." So well, I took this up to the top. I took that note and the photos of my ripped up note and sent them not only to the property manager, but to the regional manager for the property management company itself, who have many more buildings throughout the country. They got back to me and I informed them that not only was this charger not working and this hogging was happening, which was of mild concern, but then I decided to use my nuclear option and told them that their EV chargers had not been charging anyone money. This really got their attention and I found out that they are about to replace these chargers entirely with new updated charge point chargers that will start charging tenants money after 4 hours. Even if it is customary $3 to 4 hours per hour, this will add up for the Teslas hogging the chargers all day and overnight. Now you might be thinking this will affect me too, but my partner and I are dinks first of all, but also my EV does not take long to charge, it is tiny, I only need at most like 3.5 hours to charge to full usually. Basically, unless I'm an inconsiderate a-hole, I won't get charged ever. And yeah guys, if you cannot get enough, please check out my playlist on the left, and otherwise I will see you again tomorrow.